Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 2, and today I'm going to be giving you part 1 of What If Naruto Had a New Dream That Would Change Everything part 1. Really remember to get this one to 300 like as usual, and if you enjoyed and want to see part 2 of it, go ahead and comment down below and tell me if you want part 2 guys, and I'll be posting it as soon as possible, and you guys can go ahead and check out Noodlehammer. I'll be leaving the link down in the description for you guys to enjoy. And remember, if you're new, and this is the first time you hear my voice and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 2, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. And yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into this new episode. Start the intro. First of all, before the video starts, there's gonna be some changes in the ninja world. Naruto is the first and only Kyubi Jinchuriki, and the Kyubi has never been split in half. All of the power is inside of Naruto, and there are no parents chakra lurking in Naruto's seal, and the Sharingan doesn't have any power to control a Biju. There are also no other powers to control or subdue Bijus. Yes guys, so that is all the points. So sit back, relax, and enjoy guys. Let's get straight into this. A 5-year-old Naruto Uzumaki is having a nightmare. This was nothing unusual considering his life. As an orphanage that he was living at, the caretakers really hate him, and they all try to make his life a little bit worse, which include rewarding the other children for bullying him. But before the nightmare could get even worse, it changed though, as he saw a woman with slitted eyes and crimson hair, as she was holding him, stroking his hair, and he relaxed, his nightmare long forgotten. Time skip. Naruto was no 7-year-old, as he was cold, wet and hungry. This was nothing new for him, because people would often refuse to sell him food. The small amount of food that he managed to get was not nearly enough, but somehow he managed to survive without looking malnourished. As he was cold and wet, as the rain was pouring down, he was just looking for somewhere to find and wait the rain out, as he smelled something rather delicious. Yes, it smelled heavenly. As he made his way, it was a ramen shop. As Naruto made his way inside, getting from the rain, as he sat down. "What would you like?" a middle-aged man asked as Naruto looked at him. "Would it be okay if I just sit here for a moment?" Hoping that he wouldn't get yelled at if he didn't order anything. "You sure you don't want anything?" Toki asked, looking a bit concerned, because the boy looked like he was about to collapse. "Yeah, I'm not really hungry," Naruto said, but the moment he said that his stomach growled, as he looked down in embarrassment. "Doesn't sound like it to me. You wait right there, kid. I'll get you something to eat." "I don't have any money," Naruto muttered, trying not to sound sad. He had learned early on that people either get angry or made fun of him if he was sad. "It's okay. It's on the house today." Naruto was surprised. A few minutes later, a girl that looked to be about 11 years old set down a ramen bowl in front of Naruto, as Naruto smelled the heavenly dish. "Hi, I'm Ayam. What's your name?" she said with a smile. Returning the smile, the unfamiliar smile of his own. "Naruto," he said. "Nice to meet you, Naruto," she said. Time skip. A 9-year-old Naruto was lying down in the hospital bed, recovering from the vicious beating that he has endured not too long ago. He had been caught stealing, and his victims tried to beat him half to death for it. It was painful, but he was going to do it again, because he had no choice. He was charged triple the price for everything, and the small stipend that he got for orphans in the village was not enough to pay for everything that he needed to survive. Above him was a nurse with a hateful expression on her face as she was holding a syringe. Her mouth twisted into a smirk as she injected the syringe into his arm, certain that the demon that took her husband away from her would die. When she left the room, his body already started to burn up with a fever as he tried to fight off the foreign substance. Coupled with his injuries, he should have been too weak to survive it, but he felt a sudden warmth. When he woke up next day, all he could remember was being whole. He was safe and comfort. He heard a beautiful voice humming something in his ear, and he also saw red hair. Crimson red hair right over his face. Time skip. He was now 10 years old, as Naruto was shivering in his building. As he was the only one that was there, all the other tenants had moved out. They did not want to live in the same building as the demon. It was a dead of winter and he had no heating. To make it even worse, someone threw a rock through his window, and it was even colder. He would have moved to another apartment in the building, but all of them had broken windows as well. He was just thinking about what he could do to get warm when suddenly he felt this rush and he fell unconscious. As Naruto blinked several times, as he looked around, he saw a rock in front of him with a strange paper on it with a writing, and there was a cabin, a good-sized cabin. It wasn't a forest. How did he get here? Confused, he went up to the door and knocked, not really expecting anyone to be inside, but he heard footsteps. He decided to run away, but for some reason he did not, as he stayed there to see who it was. The door then opened up as Naruto stood there to see a beautiful woman, slitted crimson eyes and hair so red it looked to be on fire when it caught light, as her body was covered by a perfect fitting yukata that left a good sized amount of cleavage and her legs bare. More to the point, he recognized the woman. He saw her in his dreams many times. "It's you," he said. "Oh, you remember me?" She said she leaned on the door frame, as Naruto remembered that enchanting voice that comforted him. Without thinking, he moved forward and hugged her around the waist. "You've taken care of me for so long. How could I not remember you?" She was a bit surprised by the hug. "I wonder, would you still think so, if you know who I really am?" "Well, my name is Naruto. Who are you?" he asked. "You may call me Zanna." "I am the Kyubi," Zanna said, as Naruto noticed something swaying behind her, as he noticed that there were 9 tails swaying behind her. He heard about the Kyubi. It was said to be a giant 9-tailed fox who attacked the village 10 years ago. Zanna had said that she was a Kyubi, and she also had 9 fox tails. But she was the nicest person he ever met. After all, she was the one that comforted him and whispered their sweet words into his ear. The village must have done something bad to make her angry, as he doubted that someone as nice as her could have attacked for no reason. It made sense because almost all of them, except for a few, as you remember the Ichiraku family. Yes, most of the villagers are just evil, so they were the fault, not her. "Did they do something to you to make you angry?" Naruto asked. Zanna was surprised. She expected him to jump back in fear, but instead he asked a question that was close to the truth. Once she recalled from her shock, she picked him up as she brought him inside. As Naruto felt happy, if he could, he would have stayed in her arms the rest of eternity. "In a way, they did do something," she said. "I am drawn towards places where there are large amount of human malice and corruption. I sense it in Konoha. I came to deliver a warning. If they do not change, I would destroy them." But before I could speak a word, they attacked me, so I had no other choice but to fight back. If that fourth Hokage of yours hadn't been insane enough to summon that god, I would have destroyed the village for attacking me in the first place. "So you were just going to tell them to be better people, and then they went and attacked you," said Naruto. "Yes, and now they hate you, because I'm sealed inside of you," she said. As Naruto took a while thinking about this information, as she watched him curiously to see how he was going to react. She was expecting him to push away from her and shout accusation at her, but he was proving to be a rather unpredictable human. "Well, I'm glad that you're here with me," said Naruto. "I want you to stay with me forever." He did remember something. "Will you marry me?" he asked, as he looked at her. He didn't exactly know what that meant, but he knew that married people stay together forever. Zanna looked at him. It took a while, as she just stared at him, as an uncontrollable laughter then burst out of her. She was just supposed to by her 10-year-old container. As she tried to calm herself, "Naruto, there's something else," she said. "And the fact that I'm sealed inside you by both that god means that we're going to be together for a while. As for marrying you, well, I could only marry someone that is my equal, and at the moment you aren't," she said. He looked crestfallen for a moment, before a fearsome look passed his face. "Then I'll become your equal. Even if it takes me the rest of my life, I will do whatever I can. Then I will marry you so we can stay together forever," he said. "I promise I'll never give up. You can count on that." Zanna just simply smiled at him. She knew that this meant a lot to him and she wasn't going to crush his hopes. Besides, he needed to get stronger. It will only help him in life. Time skip. A 17-year-old, Ayam, were making her way towards Naruto's apartment, as she was going to cook him some special ramen as he had her bag of groceries. He was upset. He just failed his genuine exams. Naruto lived in a bad part of town, and it would be a very bad idea for her to be walking here alone. But that was a long time ago. Thugs from the criminal gang had come to try and get extortion money from her father, but it just stopped. She didn't know why, but she was grateful for it. And Naruto also assured her that she was perfectly safe in his parts, and so far he was right. What she didn't know was that several of the local criminals were keeping an eye on her, And it wasn't that they wanted to steal from her or anything worse. They were keeping her safe. They knew that in this part of town no one would ever dare to lay a hand on the pretty ramen waitress. But they had to ensure her safety because they knew if a single hair in her head was touched, they would be held to pay. To make ends meet, Naruto Uzumaki has turned to crime. Yes. And he caught sight of several thugs trying to extort from the Ichiraku ramen store. After meeting Zanna and promised to become her equal, Naruto had thrown himself into a nearly suicidal training regime that left him exhausted every day. This had left him needing more money, which left him no choice but to dig deeper into the criminal underworld. He was only 13 years old, and he has seized control of almost all of it already. As the criminals in Konoha has determined that a 13-year-old with ninja training is quite dangerous, one of the last criminal boss, saying that he was going to kidnap Ayam and turn her into a slave for his man. People stayed shudder and shake whenever they thought about what Naruto did to him. By now the criminals in the village realized it was a bad idea to poke at a sleeping dragon. Many of them thought that Naruto was a Kyubi in human form, but if that was true, it would be rather stupid to make him angry. That was something the rest of the village hadn't learned yet. The shinobis thought themselves above him, and they still throw insults, as they think that he wouldn't fight back because he hadn't before. They were quite wrong though, as Naruto turned the criminals towards the people who thought they could get away with abusing him. It was subtle at first, but they started to feel a sting of blackmail, extortion, and various crimes. One thing that was not tolerated though was rape, and anyone that did that was hunted down and killed. All of this was the reason why the criminal world was being protective of Ayam and Ichiraku ramen. They knew that if any harm came to them, Naruto would go through them like a harvester, looking for who was responsible. All in all though, things had improved for them. Naruto might have been young, but he kept things running smoothly, and he was clever as well. Serial killers and rapists were quickly disposed of, so they wouldn't draw any attention. And Naruto wasn't really a greedy fool like many other criminal leaders. He only kept what money he needed and invest the rest into the system, as he took his responsibility as a leader seriously, which got him a lot of respect. That is the reason why he didn't need to keep an eye out for anyone stepping out of line. But he was still scary as hell when he got angry, which is why Ayam always needed an escort, a hidden escort. The ramen stand also got a lot of business from people who was loyal to Naruto. Time skip. 15-year-old Naruto Uzumaki was once again inside the seal. He came inside the seal often to see the red-haired beauty that he swore that he was going to marry. The past 5 days he has pushed himself hard without a single break. Regeneration, that having the Kyubi seal inside of him, made sure that he didn't damage himself permanently. He tried to learn everything that would make him stronger, but that wasn't a whole lot. Shinobi techniques weren't kept in the public library for all to read, but he did learn some things, like chakra exercises and Fuinjutsu. He figured the only reason why he got his hand on Fuinjutsu book was because it was a dying art. Fuinjutsu was a difficult subject, but ever since he learned Sharingan Jutsu 2 years ago, things had picked up a lot. Truly, the day that Mizuki thought he used Naruto as an scapegoat for stealing the scrolls of Forbidden Sealing had helped him out a lot. After he figured out the Sharingan clone and the memory transfer, he was able to make his Fuinjutsu art more refined without blasting himself to smithereens. He was still failing the academy every year though, due to one biased reason from the instructors that he always made up, but they couldn't keep it up forever. It didn't matter anyway, he was getting stronger every day, and there was nothing they could do to stop that, as they had deliberately edited his scores in a way so that he'd be the dead last every time. "Good evening, Naruto, do you miss me?" Zanna asked, as she came behind him with a teasing smile as she placed her hand on his shoulder. He wasn't as small as he used to be, but he wasn't as tall as her yet. But you could see that his training was paying off because you could see the muscles. "Always, Zanna," said Naruto. "Have you been training yourself to exhaustion again?" she asked. "Yeah, but I really need to get out of the academy or else I'm gonna be stuck just because I don't have access to any new techniques." "Well, I can't help you with that," she said, "but I think I can tell you who your parents were." She had considered what to tell him whether or not, or if her guess was correct, but in the end she decided yes, and she's sure that her guess was correct. Besides, it's not like telling him about his parents or some of their abilities was going to hurt him in the long run. Or her. "Really? How did you manage to find out?" Naruto asked. He wasn't as desperate to know about his parents like he would have been in the past, but it would have still been nice to know. "Based on the feeling of your chakra, and the way you look, I would say that you're the son of the 4th Hokage and the red-haired Kunoichi that fought me that night." Naruto looked at her in shock. He definitely was not expecting that. The 4th? So that means that he sacrificed his own son to seal you. "And what about my mother? Do you know her name?" "Of course I didn't know her name, Naruto. All I know is that she had red hair, and her chakra felt similar to you, She was also able to form chains out of her chakra. The chains were remarkably strong, so it might have been a bloodline ability. If a being like Kyubi said that the chains were strong, then he might as well look into them. How was your chakra similar, Naruto asked. Well, it felt more dense. It was more compressed than more people's chakra, she said. Did my father use any interesting abilities, he asked. Or are you thinking of a way to reproduce the chains? And any other ability that he may hear? Well, aside from the teleportation trick of his, and the spinning spear, the Reaper Death Seal, she said. Awesome, thanks a lot, Naruto. This is going to go a long way towards making me marry you. Are you still determined to achieve that, she asked in amusement. Of course, I love you, and I want you to acknowledge me of being worthy of you, he said. She looked at him in surprise. This was the first time he said those words, that I love you. You love me? Don't you realize you have very little chance to ever match my power? Wouldn't it be more senseless to turn your interest towards a human girl? Even I don't know of any way to make you that powerful, she said, as she tried to reason with him awkwardly. This was new territory to her after all, as no one has ever declared a love for her, and she has not really, thought about that. But she did genuinely like the blonde teenager, and she did not want him to waste his life for a goal that might be impossible. It doesn't matter how impossible it is, said Naruto. I'll find a way to do it. And you're the only one, said Naruto. You took care of me when I was all alone. You were there for me when I had nothing left, he said. Just for all of that, I would have always loved you. But I come to know you as a person these past 5 years, and come to fall in love with you as a woman, he said. It doesn't matter if you take me my entire life, but I will become as strong as you, he said, and make you accept me as your husband. I'm willing to do anything for that. Anything you say, she said. Well, how about releasing me out of the seal? She asked in a rather sarcastic tone. Wait, you mean I could have released you any time, Naruto said. Well, of course, she said. What do you think that paper over there with seal on it meant? You mean that one on the rock, said Naruto. Yes, that's the one, she said. He made his way towards it, so all I have to do is rip it off, right? Wait! That will kill you, she said. It will, said Naruto, as he stood there for a few seconds. You know what? You've done so much for me over the past few years, and if it's your freedom you want, I won't mind giving up my life for you, he said. She looked at him. You know, you really are something else. To be so willing to give your life for mine, despite I was going to destroy the village when you were born. Yeah, about that. Could you make sure you don't hurt the old man Tuke and Ayam, Naruto said. They're good people. You would ask me to spare only them. I thought you would ask me to not attack the village, for you giving me my freedom. From what I have seen from this village, it deserves to be attacked, said Naruto. And those two are the only decent people. You need not to worry, Naruto, she said. Even if I was not sealed inside of you, I would not have destroyed the village at night completely if they did not attack me. You would have been an old man when I have returned. Also, if you release me from the seal, I think I can find a way to leave your body without killing you. It will be painful for a while though. Getting her freedom would be wonderful, but she honestly didn't want to kill him. Well then, there isn't any more reason to hold this off, said Naruto. You really should have told me some years ago. As he ripped the paper tag off. Time skip. 17-year-old Naruto was waiting, along with his 13-year-old teammates, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha, for their sensei to show up. Naruto already declared that he didn't like the man, because wasting 3 hours of his time. To Naruto, his time was important to him. The new Chunin teacher, Nino Iruka, had decided that Naruto wasn't a reincarnation of the demon fox, and decided to pass him. Naruto would have gotten more time to know the man if he wasn't one of the person who failed him in the first time. And despite him never losing that spar, and his written tests were decent, they always find a way to fail him. But now, he was finally out of the academy. It was 7 years ago since Naruto declared his love for Zanna, as Naruto hasn't been able to get his hands on any more techniques. But he realized those techniques wouldn't even compare to the power that Zanna holds in her pinky finger, as he need to find another way to get stronger. Fuin Jutsu has shown to be promising, but Zanna would not respect his strength, knowing that he could just seal her away. She would only consider my equal if he could match her in open combat. No mortal had ever considered such a thing, to become strong enough to challenge the mighty Kyubi. But Naruto did not care how insane it sounded. If no one else had the courage to try such a thing, he would be the one. He would be the first. To reach his dreams, he developed his abilities in different ways. With the knowledge that Zanna had given him about his parents, he got several ideas. He learned the spinning chakra orb that she mentioned was a Rasengan, and it was one of his father's well-known technique. But there wasn't any information on how to learn it. But he didn't let himself get stopped by that. He knew there had to be some trick to it, but it eluded him so far. He could make the orb just fine, but it wasn't doing what it's supposed to do. The Rasengan should grind away at anything that it touched. But his did not grind, and no matter how much chakra he forced into it, it would not do. So he decided to turn it into a drill around his hand. That got him some success, but it must be because of the dense chakra that he had. He named this the Rasenori, the Spiraling Spear, as he decided to leave the Rasengan alone until he got some new ideas. His other project was to see if he can manifestate the same chakra change that his mother had used. At least, him and Zanna was sure that she was his mother. He was only able to get a few documents in the Uzumaki clan, and it seemed to be a well-renowned clan, but there was not very much information about it, as a year ago he was able to manifest a single chain. After that, he kept that hidden, as he figured that Hokage was hiding his clan from him, hiding a lot from him, and he didn't want to make that public knowledge yet. Ironically though, when Zanna left his body, he became more fluent in chakra chains. It took nearly a week of him just lying down for her to leave his body, and they strained his chakra coils to the limit, as she left his body as fast as possible, without causing him too much pain, and to make sure that he would live. And due to her going through that process for 1 week, his coils had expanded to a different level. Yes, and his chakra was quite denser than before, and now the chains were quite fluent with him. Aside from that, he got his hands on some affinity paper, and he found that his affinity was wind and water. His most interesting thing though was raw manipulation of chakra. He could even enlace his words with chakra. It was a subtle genjutsu when he spoke, so subtle in fact that it was damn near undetectable, as it made him very persuasive, so long as no one realized what was going on, as he guarded his secret above anything else and only used it when he needed someone to believe in his words. According to Zanna, this was an ability that all the Bijus had to some degree. She speculated that he learned it because his body was saturated with dense chakra for so long, which other humans didn't have. Fuinjutsu was wonderful for training. Resistant seals that placed on his muscles had made him quite heavy to push himself so hard, and it sculpted his body into a different way where normal training could not have done. And despite no longer having Zanna, he still had her healing factor, as his body was used to the fast healing ability, but it caused chakra. But Naruto had so much chakra now that he wouldn't even notice unless he was in a long, drawn-out battle. All of these achievements gave him hope that his goal was achievable. And also Zanna often came to visit him. She didn't stay with him all the time, and whenever he asked where she went, she only smiled mysteriously. Sometimes she would stay at his home, which was rather nice now seeing that he was in charge of the entire red light district, but most of the time she was somewhere else. She decided that she enjoyed cuddling now, since she had someone better than any other human, the mortal sheep, she called the rest of them, that had also led to Naruto becoming a man one night when he was 16. Flashback. At 16-year-old, Naruto was a rather 6-foot tall teenager, as Zanna was in bed with him, as Zanna was just as tall as him, as she was completely naked. Yes, she said that she wouldn't wear anything to bed, and she refused him wearing anything else, well, other than his boxers. She liked his skin-on-skin contact. This was extremely wonderful, the feeling of her rubbing up against his back, but she has been gone for a while now, and she missed the cuddling, so she was moving a lot, and it made Naruto rather, well, he was a teenager, a 16-year-old teenager. His body was kind of uncontrollable, as he knew that she was doing this on purpose because he heard her giggling most of the time, as her hand then brushed down and went straight down. That surprised him, as he froze, as another giggle could be heard. He was then flipped on his back, as she crawled right on top of him with a smirk on her face. As Naruto gulped, "Are you still determined to marry me, Naruto?" she asked. He managed to find enough blood in his brain to answer. More than ever, he said, "Every day I love you more. I'm going to become as strong as you one day and marry you." As Naruto knew that she was testing him, awfully, inside the scenes she would do this thing, as she would tell him things about herself, some of them being, well, bad, and asked him if he still intended on marrying her. But despite that, he was still in love with her. She was a human, he understood that, and there was no point intending to judge her as one. But beside from that, he would be nothing without her. "You have impressed me a lot in the past few years, Naruto, and now, I think it's the right time for me to give you a reward," she whispered to him in a rather seductive voice that nearly made him lose his mind. What kind of reward?" he asked, as he did not know when his hands reached on her hips, but they were there, as she leaned down and kissed him, as his brain rebooted for a second until he kissed her back. Naruto couldn't believe that this was happening. His first time. He couldn't believe that this was really happening. As his mind was running, a mile a second. Don't worry, she said, after breaking a kiss, I'll teach you. A few minutes later, as Naruto had a rather embarrassing look on his face. After all, he was new at this. You know, I'm gonna expect you to get better at this, she said. Then you'll have to help me practice a lot, he said, with a grin on his face. I'll be sure to do that occasionally, but I meant I want you to practice with other women, she said. With a smile, knowing that this was going to shock him, out of everything else. And she was right, as Naruto was looking at her, rather confused. He had spent quite a lot of time thinking what kind of differences there were between a demonic and human woman. He had thought about the possibility that she might not care if he slept with other women. But he didn't actually was going to do it whether she cared, yes or no. To hear that she wanted to seek out to other women and do it, that left him speechless, as he didn't really know what to say. As Zanna waited for him to get his grip together, smirking the entire time. Most of the time he was always so focused, so she loved to see him a bit shocked most of the time. Let me get this straight, said Naruto. You want me to go out and find other women to sleep with, so I can get better at it? Naruto asked, just to make sure that he was hearing things right, and this wasn't some rush or something from his brain just having, well, done that with her. Yes, she said. I won't even bother asking why, since you already said you want me to get better. As she already made her intentions known, he was going to ask a stupid question. I can't say I'm entirely comfortable with this. It was always my intention to be completely dedicated to you. She smiled at that. You have already dedicated yourself to become my husband, haven't you? Of course, said Naruto. And I assume that you will not allow yourself to be swayed from this course. No way, you're the only one I could want as my wife, said Naruto. Well then, I expect you to practice your technique, rather than relying on the size of your tool. As Naruto was going to apply the human loyalty concept to a demon. And also, she made her words clear. To her, it would be an insult if he didn't try to better himself for her. Okay, said Naruto, I will seek out other women to practice on. Good, she said. And remember, the lowest circle of hell is there for Oathbreakers, she said. As Naruto nodded, as she wanted to be his alone, despite she wanted him to be practicing with other women. She wanted to get better, but officially, she's his. But despite that, Naruto's happy about it, because she would be upset if he settled for a human woman. That meant that she'd grow to care for him, which only bolstered his attitude to get stronger. She smiled. She had never met a human that tried to understand demons to this extent. He never was bothered by the fact that she killed humans, or the bloodlust, or no remorse she got when she slaughtered them. It was actually quite amusing that the only thing that made him pause so far was the both of them talking about sex. Even when she told him that she might end up killing innocent bystanders in a rampage, and she never felt remorse, he wasn't upset about it, as he just told her after a few minutes that it would be likely her own fault for not getting out of the way. The next week after that, as Naruto has gotten over the why, so he decided to head to the brothel, because there would be various women there to practice on. As there was a woman there in her 30s, which he spoke to, he mentioned a twisted part of the truth. Well, he did not tell her about his demonic wife to be, but she understood the situation after hearing it at least 3 times. And the woman knew who he was, and knew that he was the reason why rape has been squashed out here. Despite trying to keep it on the down low, word had spread about Naruto, as some of them are concerned about him being so young. But after seeing him have everything under control, loyalty started to set in, and everyone kept their mouth shut so it wouldn't spread anymore. And not to mention his policy that there should be no mistreatment to the girls, any of them. The girls in the brothels, well, just say they were rather grateful, and not to mention he was so handsome they thought. So it wasn't long when he came to look for practice, he was being passed by one girl to another. The story about the woman that he loved and that she wanted to practice to get better had only made the girls more happy, and it made them more enticing, he didn't know why. And they started to just go at it even more. 3 girls had came one day. They didn't know which one of them to come first. So, he decided to use a shadow clone. And when they found out that he could make so many, sometimes Naruto felt like he was having sex with the entire red light district, but he was getting a lot of information. All in all, he felt like a man whore. And also, fluid jutsu was a great thing, to make sure none of them got pregnant. But he felt like he got a lot better, and they wanted to come back and give them their Naruto time. Zanna has been laughing her ass off when she saw him getting passed around like a piece of meat. Not forgetting one who helped him, Naruto has diverted a rather large sum of money to the girls that helped him, and that was all of them. and there was new businesses opening everywhere over Konoha, with Naruto Uzumaki being on the VIP list of all of them, and there was a decrease of prostitutes. End of the flashback. Naruto snapped out of his thought to see the one eye. Silver-haired Jonin came into the room. My first impression of you, you're boring. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes, he said. Time skip. Kakashi Hatake looked at the tree, Genin in front of him. As they were what he expected, but something was off. Well, Sasuke Uchiha was dark, brute, what he expected. Sakura Haruno was supposed to be the top Kunoichi, but from what he saw of her, she was clearly not. Her arms were skinny and without any sort of muscle from any training, and not to mention the way she kept on glass in the Uchiha. She seemed to be some sort of fangirl. Uzumaki Naruto was the surprise of the bunch. 6'1", heavily muscled, but not so much that it would slow him down. Long blonde hair that was held in a ponytail, whisker marks, and some of his teeth looked to be sharpened, giving Murder Fury a look. He supposedly only showed up at the academy to take tests. Otherwise, he didn't bother to show up at all. The academy instructors has claimed for years that he was a useless loser who was going to fail every time. But looking in his eyes were making Kakashi hard to believe that, as he was reminded of Minato Sensei, but even more driven and much more colder. Somehow Kakashi knew that the blonde would be the one he would need to watch out for. Alright, why don't you tell me something about yourself? Things such as dislikes, hobbies, and goals and dreams. Why don't you go first, Sensei, so we can see how it goes, Sakura said uncertainly. Fine. My name is Kakashi Hatake. I have few things that I like and few things that I don't. Hobbies, I have hobbies. As for dreams, I never really thought about it. Your turn, Pinky. She scowled at the nickname, but she went on. My name is Haruna Sakura. I like... She looked at Sasuke, she blushed. I hate Inope, and my dream is... She looked at Sasuke and giggled. Alright. Your turn, princess. As he looked at Sasuke. Sasuke was already scowling because of Sakura's introduction, so nickname really didn't change his face much. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I don't like anything and I dislike almost everything. My ambition is to kill a certain someone and rebuild my clan. While Sakura was staring at Sasuke and thinking how cool he was, Kakashi gestured towards the blonde. Now you, blondie. The name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like training, ramen, and people I'm close to. My hobby is training and my dream is none of your business. Kakashi sighed, so I'm stuck with a wannabe adventure. A fangirl and a hard ass with a chip on his shoulder. Great. Just goddamn great. Meet me tomorrow at 6 at training ground 7 for your genuine test. Oh, and don't eat breakfast. You will puke, he said. Sasuke and Sakura looked surprised, while Naruto narrowed his eyes in suspicion. He saw Genin to graduate, returning back to the academy sometime though. But Sensei, we already graduated from our exam, Sakura said. Oh that was to rule out the really hopeless cases. The real test is administered by the Jonin Sensei, and it also have a 66% of failure. Well, see you tomorrow, he said, and with that he poofed away. Time skip. As Naruto walked towards his teammates, as he had a good rest and just eat a big breakfast. Thanks to his network, Naruto was able to get information, as Kakashi may be an A-rank ninja, to be dangerous to the rest of the world, the copy ninja, but in Konoha he was a rather lazy man who always showed up late and always reading porn. Naruto's good mood was broken by a loud cry. You're late! As Naruto looked at the pink-haired girl. If I'm late, then where's our sensei? She looked at him. That's not the point, she said. You're supposed to be here 2 hours ago. Clearly, if our sensei's not here, I'm not late for anything. I'm not gonna waste my time waiting for someone who can't even stick to his own schedule. As there was silence after that, but his words chose to be false because he still waited another 2 hours waiting for the man. Yo, Kakashi said as he appeared 2 hours after Naruto arrived. You're late, Sakura yelled out. Well, you see, I took a wrong turn in the road of life, he said. Liar, Sakura said. Naruto rolled his eyes at the girl. She really needs to learn some volume control. Well, now that we're all here, we can get started, Kakashi said, as he pulled out 2 bells. Your job is to get a bell from me. Who does passes, and if you do not, you'll be tied to the post over there, and watch us eat lunch in front of you, and get sent back to the academy. When this alarm clock rings, the test is over, and I will decide whether you pass or not. As he placed on the clock a nearby log. 2 stomachs growled when they heard that, as everyone looked towards Naruto when they didn't hear anything from him. Didn't I tell you not to eat breakfast, Kakashi questioned with an eye smile. You did. But I chose to ignore you, said Naruto. Well, at least one of you know better than to listen to stupid orders. Both Sakura and Sasuke looked upset over this. Sakura was also extremely hungry since she skipped dinner the previous night. Alright, time to get started. Make sure to come at me with the intent to kill or you won't succeed. Alright? Begin! As Kakashi Watch, Sakura and Sasuke flashed away. He pulled out his book, but Naruto was still standing there. Aren't you going to hide, Naruto? No, I was thinking of coming at you head on first. Kakashi was about to say something, but it was cut off by Naruto dashing forward. The speed was far faster than any genin. As Kakashi jumped back, he put his book away at the same time, knowing that he wouldn't get to read it if the blonde was this fast. He kept his eyes firmly on Naruto, so he was surprised when two arms wrapped around his chest, much too big to be Sasuke or Sakura, as they kept him, as his hands were clamped at his side, as he tried to break free, but to his surprise the blonde was stronger than him, so he used a substitution before he got stabbed by the clone. No worry of any tricks, Kakashi was certain that the academy reports on Naruto were a lot of crap. Naruto sent a clone to wait for him while the real one hid nearby. If he was really that dead last, then he'd have just spammed clones and forced him trying to overwhelm him. But Naruto wasn't going to use any other tricks. What he really wanted was to test himself against Kakashi to see how he measured up against the Jonin. As he dispelled the clone and dashed forward, Kakashi could see that Naruto didn't really have any style. But he was still fast and strong enough. It made him dangerous and vicious. But not dangerous enough to reveal his Sharingan. Kakashi would have not leave it down if he had to use the Sharingan against a fresh genin. There was some opening in Naruto's styles though, as he flipped and grabbed Naruto's ponytail and he pulled him back as he pulled a kunai to place at his throat for him to surrender. But he felt the ponytail, he could feel a chakra going through it. As he released it just in time, as the thing exploded into spikes outwards that would have embedded into his hand. Apparently the ponytail was less of a vulnerability. It was a trap. In their spot, Sakura and Sasuke were watching in disbelief how much trouble the dead last was giving their sensei. Despite that he never lost a taijutsu battle, no one ever took him seriously. Most of the teachers went out of their way to belittle him, and he never even showed up most of the time. They all took the fact that he was so much older than them as a sign that he was too much of a loser to graduate with people his own age. Sasuke snapped out of his shock as he threw several shuriken towards Kakashi, trying to catch him off guard. He was not going to be shown up by anyone, as Kakashi was struck, but he was replaced by a log. As Naruto turned his head, but he was not really getting anywhere. The man was fast. Yes, he was fast and powerful. As he went into cover, less than a minute later he heard screaming, as he could no longer see Kakashi. In a nearby clearing, Kakashi, with his book in hand, he was going over the fight. He had to admit he was surprised by the blonde. He knew that they had to be more than what the academy mentioned about him, but this was far surprising. Naruto has been clearly doing some training to get his body that fast and strong. Yes, and given the muscle, he hadn't used chakra enhancement. Most shinobi didn't bother with that since chakra enhancement was far stronger and faster. But it seems like Naruto was indebted on squeezing out everything that he can get. Kakashi just hoped that he wouldn't get a bowl haircut and also start wearing green spandex. He was disappointed in Sakura though. She was supposed to be good at genjutsu, but a simple genjutsu, and it knocked her out. How she became Taku no Ichi was completely beyond his understanding, as Sasuke came out of cover, trying to take him head on. Although he knew that it just didn't work, he was still going to try anyway. While that was going on, Naruto was thinking, as he never saw a team with two genin before. Not to mention, Kakashi had already used deception by telling them not to eat breakfast. And yes, that was a trick, as he didn't really accomplish anything against Kakashi, and Sasuke just got buried up to the neck in the dirt. He had used his chakra chains, or his drilling Rasengan, but he was going to release those, well, unless it was a good reason. Consider that Kakashi ordered them not to eat breakfast, but there was a bogus order. He considered that this test had some other reason to it. He was trying to pit them against each other, but perhaps he wanted them to work together as a team. He can try to work with Sasuke, but Sakura was the odd entity in this fight. She can only be used as cannon fodder in this fight. Kakashi watched as he saw Naruto came from the woods and beat Sasuke out of the ground, and the both of them talk. He was too far to hear them, and he could not read their lips in the position that he was. And not to mention, Sasuke seemed a bit upset, but he accepted. Maybe this team will pass the test. They were a lot different from teams that he feels so far. Moments later, as Naruto and Sasuke were making their way towards the clearing, as they had agreed, reluctantly, and they had came to the same conclusion about Sakura. But Naruto wasn't going to reveal any of his abilities, so their plan had to do with Naruto's Chakra clones and Sasuke one fire attack. As he approached Kakashi, he spoke. So, they decided to work together, have you, he said, as he looked into his book. Might as well give it a shot, Naruto said, as he dashed forward. Kakashi smirked under his mask. He was impressed that they decided to work together, though he was wondering where Sakura was. The fight had settled with Naruto using close combat, with Sasuke firing kunais from distance to try and confuse him, as Naruto created clones that make sure he didn't get too much breathing room. Kakashi was going all out of course, because he was only using taijutsu, but he was interested to see if they would try something different soon. As the both of them became quite adept at each other's moves, as they continued to fight even more. As Kakashi was attacked by 3 clones along with the original, as Sasuke speed through what sign? First time, Fireball Jutsu. The strategy with a fork against other tunings on lower. But it was all sent to hell when Sakura arrived, as she had woken up, as she heard battles. So she rushed over in panic, determined to see if her precious Sasuke was right. As she saw him working alongside Naruto, she decided to join in to make Sasuke see her. As she rushed towards Kakashi, the moment they start their strategy, as she rushed in really close before letting loose a kunai. Unfortunately though, her kunai hit one of Naruto clones that were blocking Kakashi from leaving, expelling it, and giving Kakashi a clean escape. As he grabbed Sakura and used her as a hostage, as all of them froze. Sasuke may not have liked Sakura, but he wouldn't want to set her on fire. As Kakashi wondered what would they do now. Before anything else could be done though, the alarm bell went off. Well, it looks like the test is over, and you failed to get the bell, despite working together. Considering all of this, I have no choice but to... As he trailed off, making them get rather tense. Pass you all, he said, as he gave them all an eye smile. Sasuke and Sakura looked shocked, while Naruto nodded to himself. His suspicions were correct. Well, I guess none of you are getting tied to the post, since you figured out the point of the test was teamwork. I left you 3 lunch boxes at the alarm clock, so get some rest and meet me here at 8 tomorrow morning. As he vanished. 20 minutes later, as he just got finished eating. Guys, Sakura said, I'm really sorry I got in the way of you guys in the end there, she said. That's alright, Sakura, said Naruto. I'm not disappointed in you at all. Sasuke looked towards him because Sasuke was pissed. She messed up the entire plan. What if Kakashi didn't pass them? What if they had failed? And then the blonde had to go and forgive her. And now, she looked relieved. But it seems that Naruto was a lot nicer than they thought. After all, said Naruto, speaking once more, I'm not disappointed, because I already expect you to be useless from the start. Sasuke was shocked by that. Sakura couldn't believe what he just said. From so kind to so brutal. What? You're a wimp, and you spend all your time fawning over Sasuke instead of training. If you want to be a cheerleader, then quit being a ninja, find some pom-poms, and find a short skirt, and flash yourself at him as a civilian, because it's clearly that you don't want to be a ninja. How dare you, she said in anger. I am just a part of his team as you are, and I will stop Kunoichi while you were dead last for 4 years. What, you were in the academy doesn't really mean shit in the real world. If you don't get your shit together, then you're gonna end up getting separated from your team one day without backup. And when that happens, not if, but when, and you haven't, not one thing in your head to know what to do, because you spend your entire time fawning over him, and instead of training, the best you can hope for is a quick death. But if you're really unlucky, some sick bastard's gonna capture you and use you as his plaything until they get bored. As he got up and walked away, leaving the both of them gaping like fish. The very first thing Naruto did was head to the library. The librarian tried to prevent him entry, but noticed he was a chonin. A dark glare and a scowl made her shut her mouth rather quickly. He made a reputation of not taking crap from anyone the past few years, and they realized that he was not a child anymore that he could pull one over on. As he sent out clones, but there wasn't all that much here to be found. One of his clones found the water walking and surface clean. More chakra control, and if to use it was always a good thing. There were only a few basic on genjutsu and ninjutsu, along with a few D-rank techniques. The only thing of rather greater interest was another Fuinjutsu book, as he had his clones copy the others while he took the Fuinjutsu book to home. Moments later, as Naruto was making his way home, as he still had to find out about wind and water manipulation because there wasn't much on that subject there. Until he learned more about that, he was stumped. As he was deep in thought, he turned the corner and bumped into someone. As he reached out and grabbed her before she could fall to the ground. Naruto. She squeaked in surprise. Kasumi, what are you doing here? Said Naruto. Kasumi was one of the girls that used the money he sent them to get out of a life of prostitute. She and along with 2 of her friends had pulled their money together and bought out a clothing store from an old woman whose business was failing. The fact that that old woman was one of them who had cursed at him when he was younger had nothing to do with her business failing. Yes, nothing at all. All 3 of them had moved into an apartment above their new store, which is why Naruto was surprised to run into her here. Oh, I was just visiting Keiko. She made us promise a visit when we left. Kazumi explained. Oh yes, Keiko would be quite upset if you didn't visit Naruto. As you remember, the girl in question, Keiko, was one of those women who actually worked in a brothel by choice. Despite her occupation, she actually didn't really sleep with so many men or women. At first glance, that would be very odd, because she was a beautiful, black-haired girl with alluring eyes, in her late 20s, as she always had a smile on her face. As many people always wonder why the matrons in charge of the brothel only directed a few clients to her way. Well, those who knew her understood. She had a rather perverted streak, because those who came to her usually end up chained. Clients were always given a safe word when introduced to Keiko, and seeing that Naruto was new to this, so the woman then sent him to Keiko. Keiko did not give him a safe word because he was new and he wanted to learn as much as possible. As he was drugged, when he woke up, he was chained, and she was in a rather thick leather suit. For the next few hours, she gave him pleasure and pain, until he didn't know whether to kill her or thank her, as she ignored him whenever he told her to stop, until she was satisfied. After that, she demanded that he tie her up and do the same thing. After all, he went through all of that without even backing down. And Naruto went through with it. Naruto's face was on fire with the things that she told him to do, things worse than the other. He never imagined that any woman could be this much of a pervert before. He hadn't thought anyone could be this much of a pervert. Would you like to come over for some tea? Kazumi asked, with a blush on her face, breaking from his thoughts. That's so nice, but I just passed my genin test, and I got a lot to do, he said. As Naruto knew exactly why she wanted to come over there, as Kazumi was a beautiful woman in her late 20s, with brown hair and dark eyes, curvy, with a cheerful attitude, especially now that she didn't have to work in a brothel. It kinda didn't feel right to him to accept offers like this anymore. Oh, congratulations, she said. Now you definitely have to come over. I can call Aiko and Suki, and we can all celebrate together. I am sure they will be just as thrilled as me, she said, her blush getting rather deeper, as he knew that her roommates would be all in for hearing him. After all, they did it before. But being too much of a man whore was, that was a bit too much. And last time he was with Zanna, she was pleased. So he figured not to do this so much again. That's so great, Kazumi, but I really can't right now. I got a lot of things I need to do. As he wasn't sure how long he could keep resisting this, especially since he knew that Zanna wouldn't care. So, he would break eventually. Kazumi sighed. She gave a disappointed pout, but she nodded all the same. Alright, some other time then, she said. See ya, as she walked off. Genin, huh? That means he's gonna be doing D-Rank mission for a while. I suppose we have to hire a Genin team to sort out those new shipments of clothes that is going to be arriving in 2 days. As a smile came on her face, if she had her way, the only clothes that he was going to be sorting was hers and her roommates. Time skip as Naruto stepped out of a cold shower. As he looked into the mirror, as he looked at his teeth, most of them were sharpened, as Zanna had something to do with this. He realized to ask her, why did she do this? Most people that saw them were quite scared most of the time when they saw his teeth, especially when he was angry, but most of the girls, they loved him. With only a towel wrapped around his hips, he made his way to his bedroom. As he stopped to see Zanna, she was sitting in a cushioned chair. Hello, Naruto, she said. Congratulations finally making Genin. Thanks, Zanna, he said. It means a lot that you come to congratulate me. I'm actually glad you're here for another reason too. Oh, what is it? I want to ask about my teeth, he said. They are very nice teeth, yes. What about them, she asked, with a smile that showed her own sharp teeth. I was wondering, did you make my teeth like this on your own? Or was that side effect of you being sealed inside me? It was deliberate, of course. Along with the whisker mark, she said. Thanks for that, said Naruto. I really like the teeth and whisker marks. As he gave her a smile. As she smiled at him, her favorite human. He was the most interesting she encountered in longer than she dared to think of. As he threw himself into a task that anyone else would have think impossible of. He was glad that she made changes to his body that most would dislike. And also, he did some things like evaluate his father's sacrifice by releasing her from the seal. And he didn't seem to matter about it. The soul of the fort was trapped away inside the dead god. As she could only imagine the look on the Fort Hokage's face if he found that his son was going to marry the very demon that he tried to stop all those years ago. As she chuckled to herself. Well, I have also come here for another reason and congratulations, she said, as she was wearing a red dress, as Naruto could see that she was wearing underwear. Oh, what reason would that be, Naruto asked. Lust is an interesting thing, she said, as she trailed her way around him and stopped behind him. Inspire the lust in others and their mind would be clouded, she said. as Naruto was really paying attention to what she was saying because her hands were trailing straight down, as the towel had long since dropped, as she kept on whispering into his ear until she suddenly stopped. "Well, I know you have a lot more things to do, seeing that you just become a genin and all," she said, her tone filled with amusement, and then she vanished, as Naruto dropped to his knees, now having a good understanding about using other people's lust against them. She must have saw him with the other girl out there, and his instinct not to rely on it, as she told him brutally that she would only care if another woman took her place in his heart, but despite that he could sleep with as much as he wanted. He wasn't exactly sure why she kept on pushing him to sleep with other women, but he supposed he was supposed to learn something. Everything about this encounter done in a rather specific manner to the dress not wearing underwear, and touched him, as she used his lust against him. Time skip, 2 days later, as Team 7 is in front of the Hokage. They weren't so excited anymore because their last mission was a picked up garbage. So, the rank missions really suck. As Sarutobi looked over them, he felt the saddest when he looked at Naruto, as Naruto was smarter than he think and he knew that. When he was a child, he asked him why the villagers has hated him, but he did not give him a straight answer, as he just urged him to believe that they did not hate him, as they were only acting on arrogance. Naruto got angry at him making more excuse and not telling him the real reason, and the more he grew older, the more he started to avoid him. Despite Sarutobi trying to befriend him, Naruto became rather closed off. As the Hokage, it was Sarutobi's job to protect the village, but he was protecting people that distrusted Naruto and people that abused him, and Naruto distrusted him for that. It had gotten even worse when Naruto was 13 and he learned about the Kyubi. Sarutobi tried to explain that the fort had sacrificed his life to protect the village from a rampaging demon, and he trusts Naruto to hold it back and keep the village safe. This has only further to anger Naruto, as if he was protecting them, why the hell did they hate him? And Sarutobi did not have an answer for that. After that, Naruto matched the villagers glare for glare, and if any of them tried to raise their hands against him, he struck back as well. His new attitude had caused all of them to back off. They no longer tried to wish to start anything with him, as he was too busy to worry about the academy, as he thought that Naruto was just a poor student. But Iruka had informed him that the academy has been tampering with Naruto grades. This was another reason why Naruto did not trust him. As he looked at the results, Naruto should have been Rookie of the Year and graduated years ago. But it was too late to do anything now, and revealing that he was only going to rock the boat. And from what Kakashi has told him, Team 7 was already shaken up as much. "We have something special for Team 7 today," said Sarutobi. Special House Soccer said, "It could be hardly worse than collecting garbage. Your team was specifically requested for this mission." To be more blunt, they requested a team with Naruto Uzumaki on it. They were confused. Why? Who were the clients, Naruto asked, as he wanted to get to the bottom of this. 3 women that own a clothing store had requested your help for a shipment that arrived today. Their names are Kazumi, Suki, and Aiko. As Naruto twitched at the reminder, "I take it that you know these women, Naruto?" asked Kakashi, as he noticed that Naruto seemed to know something. "You could say that, apparently, they know that I am a genin, and want somebody familiar to doing the mission." But Naruto was sure what he was going to be doing was going to be different from what his team was going to be doing. After his conversation with Zanna, Naruto understand that she was teaching to stop suppress himself. It was ingrained in human brains to hide things that may seem as shameful. This fear prevented people from acting in certain ways even if they wanted to. The community has already rejected Naruto, and the ones who had already accepted him would not be bothered by his behavior anyway. Still, it wasn't as easy as just flipping it off like that. You can still feel shame no matter what. To restrain by his own honor. Yes, he would not stop his primal instincts anymore. But if he tried to explain this to anyone, saying that, well, he was going to be pulled back, meaning that the woman that caught his eye, and they were willing, he was going to sleep with them. He would sound like such a bastard if he would say that out loud. Time skip. Team 7 reporting for the mission, said Kakashi. As they entered the clothing store, it's 3 Jenny right behind him. The young woman at the counter looked up as she smiled, seeing Naruto there. "Oh good, I'm Kazumi, and my colleagues, Suki and Aiko, should be here any second now." As she said that, the 2 women came out of the back room. "Hello, I'm Suki, and this is Aiko," Suki said. Suki has long, dark brown hair with amber eyes. Aiko had short black hair, made her blue eyes stand out, as they were in their mid to late 20s, as all of them were very pretty, and dressed in tight blouses and skirts. "So, what do you need my Jenny to do?" asked Kakashi. "The 2 short ones will be sorting the new clothing into the box in the back." It should be obvious, but there's some instructions written down just in case. And we need someone big like Naruto to help us with something upstairs. Sasuke and Sakura bristle at being called short once, and Naruto has a smile on his face. Well, it was part of the mission to do whatever the client says. Alright, Sakura, Sasuke, let's go. See what your job is. Kakashi the eye smile, as Naruto had gotten singled out. But he wasn't worried because these women seemed to be on friendly terms with him. Alright, let's go, said Kazumi, as Naruto followed behind them with a smile on his face, while the others went towards the boxes. But guys, to be in this episode right here, if you want to see part 2 of this and you enjoy, go ahead and comment down below and tell me if you want to see part 2, guys, and I'll be posting it as soon as possible for you guys to enjoy. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both anime making and anime making too, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the anime making family. And yeah, stay in tune and I hope you enjoy each and every one that are coming up soon. I'm off for now. See you guys soon. Peace.